Well, hello everyone, and welcome to our last day of the program. Today, we're going to talk about communicating the innovation, right? So we talked about the general innovation, then we went into talking about the people aspect of the innovation, then we talked more about the approaches to the innovation, right? Corporate venture capital, how can you see the trends, how you can look into the future, how can you work with the customer, how can you work with the technology. Then we talked about, okay, how does CVC work, right? Corporate venture capital, how does it work, how does it integrate? And then today we're going to talk about communication and how do we actually communicate the innovation within our organization and outside of our organization. So what I'm going to talk today is that how do we actually start the innovation from the culture? And I think that building this culture of innovation, I know it's a little bit of the buzzword, but I think it's still very important to understand is that investing into people, investing into thinking how and when we can do the innovation is very, very important and actually provides the maximum ROI. Because you can invite the best consultants in the world, you can invite the best people in the world to do something for you. But until you build it within yourself, it's not going to be a true innovation. It's not going to be working as you expect it to work. And moreover, is that culture actually, if you build it, it becomes self-perpetuating. So even if some people leave, if you have enough people abiding to this culture, the new people who come will automatically get the same culture as well. So that's why it's very important to communicate and build your strategy around this culture of innovation. And as I said, it's going to be a very interactive sessions. So I'm going to be calling a lot of you. So just be prepared to speak. So I assume you can see my screen, right?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So, one of the things and the main thought that I want to bring throughout today, right, is that really success of new innovation is depending on the predetermined culture and guardrails, right? So you need to kind of set, okay, what is going to be the culture and what is going to be the guardrails. And I think we all know is that the corporate work that we have around that we are working every day is very different from this culture of the innovation. Our typical one in the regular day-to-day culture is really working around the, okay, this is step one, and then there are going to be a step two, step three, step four, and so on, right? So you have this very predetermined thing, and this is how we build our career, is by achieving certain things throughout our life, throughout our career. And that's what we need to change, because innovation does not work that way. But a little bit about myself, why you should listen to me, and some of my experience behind that approach. And here I'm trying to combine a couple of my personal experiences, a couple of the things that we have learned from the other practitioners, as well as working with the clients on the larger transformation initiatives. So my background, I've been mainly spent the majority of my career on the Wall Street, was with Goldman Sachs, Wells Fargo, then did a lot of financial managerial consulting for Fortune 500 companies. I also, time to time, I teach the MBA program at University of Utah. Also co-founded and exited one of the startups, and right now I'm a chief operating officer at Silicon Valley Innovation Center. And this is for some of you who are not from US, for the majority of you, because you're not from US, that's some of the products that I have helped developed. Apple Card, some of the dark trading pools, some of the new things and new innovation, how Goldman moved from being this, investment bank, they're working only with big corporations and very rich people, to being a consumer bank like many others on the street. And when we kind of did a lot of those things, there's definitely a lot of new unpredictable things that are kind of built in. And a lot of times that when people think about, this is the point A, right? And this is a point B. And if we took a regular approach to our execution, it would look something like this, right? So we'll go here, then we'll have a checkpoint, then we would scope, then we'll do here, maybe it'll go a little bit off, then we'll go 2, and then it will go to our 3, and then maybe we'll go to our B, something like this, right? And that's kind of our expectations, right? If we really do a lot of work, if we really do a lot of understanding, then this is how it's going to work. Well, the more novel, the more innovative, the more new idea is, the less it's going to look like that. So to give you an idea, we will probably have something like this. So we have point A and we have point B, right? And we try to achieve it. But then our execution might look like this. Maybe we'll start here. Maybe even the first step is going to be okay. But then it might go right here. We might go off the budget. Or maybe we will find something that we didn't know even exists. Because again, you create something new, you don't know how you market, how your teams, how your customers, how your everything is going to react. Maybe it will go like this, right? And then it will go here, and then it will go here, and then maybe it will go here, and maybe it will end up actually somewhere here. Maybe it will end up at C, right? And that's really hard to give to the teams, right? How do you actually can go back to your team, back to your employees, and those who are working, and how do you actually prepare them? Well, you know what? There's a high degree of uncertainty in what we do. How do we know where to start, when to stop, and what are the limitations? And that's why it's very important to have those guardrails, right? To have those guardrails in the beginning. So pretty much the only thing that we're trying to define when we're trying to work on the innovation, when we're trying to communicate the innovation, communicate that culture of innovation, is that we have point A, that's where we are right here. We have in general, using the corporate speak, we have a North Star, or where we're trying to get. And then we're trying to see limitations. Maybe those limitations, those guardrails is time. If it's taking too much time at a certain period of time, well, maybe this point should go somewhere here. Or maybe it takes too much budget, or it doesn't reach enough customers. So we're trying to set up some guardrails, some generic guardrails around that execution. And it's very important to keep them on the high level because, again, there's a lot of unknowns, but then at the same time, you need to determine them ahead of time. You need to determine and you need to communicate them that, yes, there's going to be all this movement within those guardrails, but we will do our best to stay within those guardrails. And having those four things, so kind of our guardrails, our A and B, and in general direction usually is a good step to actually go from there. But in order to actually put it in the work, that's when this culture of innovation is working towards the better execution. So any questions so far? Okay, kind of makes sense. All right.
No, that's fine.
Awesome. And before we go any further, right? And we kind of already talked about it, but I really want to put this in the separate box, right? Is that when we're thinking about the innovation, it's usually never about technology. We never go and onboard AI or big data or digital banking or anything like that for the sake of the technology. It is always focusing on the customers, right? It's always focusing on, okay, what are we trying to do? It is focusing on our organization. And it really comes from the process. How do we build the process that will allow to use us this technology to make our organization better? And effectively, if it does work on paper, if you can put it in the piece of paper and say, this is the process, this is how it's going to help our customers, does it actually work if you not necessarily put a technology in, right? For example, if you're using some kind of AI bot, right? What are you trying to achieve? The only thing that you're trying to achieve is the faster response time to your customers. The only thing that AI does is effectively it replaces humans, right? And we already know that this is useful, works, this helps. And you need to really think not about technology, but think about the process, what we're trying to do. And that leads me to my first kind of point, right, about the organizational alignment and building that culture. So, and that's one of the things that I think a lot of companies a little bit think less, is that the innovation should change organizations for better. And I know it sounds a little bit weird that yes, but in reality, a lot of times we don't actually go to the underlying reasons for it, right? Like, let me give you an example. Let's say that I have a goal of running a marathon, 42.1 kilometers, right? And then that could be my very good goal, or implementing new technology, or implementing new approach, starting a new business line. But then you're actually trying to apply what is called a 5 whys, Did anyone heard about it? 5 Whys. It was originated by the founder of Toyota. Have you heard about that approach? 5 Whys.
Yes, I heard about it.
Mm-hmm.
My name is Hannah,
Yeah.
and we've heard about it for analyzing the reasons
Uh-huh.
and more into root causing
Mm-hmm.
any problem.
Exactly, right. So Hannah, do you mind quickly giving a breakdown of what those 5 Whys are? Like, what's the approach?
It's mainly asking what, when, and why, or asking the why for analyzing the core source of the problem. It might be the people. They say it's the P's, it's the people, it's
Process.
the problem or the processes like that. There is either the P's or I think the C's, something like that.
Yeah.
But I remember analyzing it or asking the same question repeatedly for several times, trying to reroute or to pinpoint or to narrow the problem, to identify exactly the source of it, to understand if it's a structure related or a process related or people related kind of problem.
Exactly, right. And and that's the idea, right? So I want to run a marathon. Like, why would I want to do it in the first place? Like the big question is like, why do I want to do it, right? And there could be several things. I can run it because it's my ego. I want to try something new. Maybe I want to get better at running, right? Why do you want to get better at running? Well, maybe because I want my health to improve. Okay, if I want my health to improve, why do I want my health to improve? Well, because it's been deteriorating lately, right? And then why have been deteriorating lately? Well, because I wasn't moving, which we're trying to solve, and then I wasn't eating right. Okay. So maybe the root cause of why you want to run the marathon is that you need to eat better, right? And you need to actually improve your health. And then, right? So this is we kind of did this root cause analysis. Why are we trying to do this? So let's say I change my diet and I start running and I'm hitting for my marathon, right? I'm eating well, I'm doing everything right, and then instead of the marathon, I cannot do it. I run only 21 point whatever, the half of that, right? 25 21:05, right? Like let's say I just run a half marathon. If I ran the half marathon and my goal was to eat better, and I'm doing, and improve my health and become better in running, if instead of the marathon I ran a half marathon, did I achieve my actual goals? If my goal was to get better at running and better at eating,
No.
did I?
No.
So okay. So if I'm better eating, I'm got better at running, right? And then but instead of the full marathon, I ran a half marathon. Did I reach my goal of eating better and running better compared to what I was before?
Yes.
Okay, right? So I did, right? But then if I was doing it for ego, right? Well, then probably I didn't reach that, right? And that's very important point here is that when we're trying to think about innovation, then let me pick maybe like a digital banking. And I know we have discussed, let's say, a digital banking for the telecom provider. So we're trying to do the digital banking, right? And then I'm just going to pick up on our friends from the digital banking and like payments, maybe like a payment system. Why are we trying to build that model? What are we trying to do? Why are we trying to build this digital payment banking model inside the telecom? Why?
I think it's for customer satisfaction and to reduce the cost and to have better tracking.
Customer
I
satisfaction.
think I'm not from that industry, but yet I'm predicting.
Yeah. So okay. So customer satisfaction. Okay, that's a good one. What do you think they are dissatisfied with? Like what's the point of that customer satisfaction? What is not satisfying about the current experience? And I know
to squeeze the process time of payment and transaction. That that customer are suffering from, say, prolonged process of payment. So definitely, if I'm going to offer a squeeze time of the transaction processing, it will definitely satisfy or let customer feeling better than before.
Okay. So effectively, what I hear shorter payment time, correct?
I think it's more into accessibility. Like if you got all the elements or all the things over your mobile and you can sort it out instead of visiting the bank, that would be a big time win.
I do agree with Hannah. I'm going to act as if I'm a customer. Yes, I do agree with Hannah that it's about accessibility. I can do all whatever I want at any time. For example, if I want to transfer money from one to my wife to anyone, I'll just transfer it anytime, 2 a.m., 3 a.m., weekend. I'm not waiting for the bank or for the process. That is giving me, it's putting a lot of dependencies and a lot of limitations. So moving from to a digital one, I'm creating a new process for me and for my life where I can do anything at any time.
Okay, so that's that we talked about the customers, but how would it change the organization? What it would lead to? So like for your organization, what I try to get out of it?
Okay, let's talk. If I'm talking that about I'm an online, I'm going to sell anything online. Okay, so I'm going to be available 24/7, and not only during the working hours, during any time that I will be available. I'm going to gain revenue from people online just buying my products online.
Okay.
In addition to, of course, saving the cost of the saving the costs of the employees who are going to and the resources who needs to be available in order to reach all the customers, and at the end reachability. For example, I might not have a lot of retail shops in some areas, and it might cost a lot, but I'm going to reach all the customers just online.
Yep, absolutely. Hannah, you wanted to add something?
I think the most important thing, and here it's the wealth of data, not the money. At this point, once you are building data, you can learn the trends of behavior of people or trends and behavior of customers. And based on that, you can offer and optimize the processes and the productivity based on these trends and estimation, and you can easily monitor that. And the wealth or the investment would be the data.
So now we came down to the very important point, right? So effectively, right now I hear two trends and two big whys that we're trying to get to, right? So two big whys of why we're trying to build a digital payment and banking. Again, it might not be that accurate, right? But I'm just walking you through the process. It might not be that accurate, actually. But I hear that there are two things that we trying to build a digital payment banking for two main reasons. First one, we're trying to get the data to optimize our processes to save money, right? To save money effectively. Because we can understand their behavior, we can understand what is going on. And then the second one is what we're trying to do is that we already have the customers, right? So what we're trying to do is that we're trying to increase the revenue per customer. Increase revenue per customer. Would it be a fair statement? Is that this is kind of two main reasons why we're trying to do this, or at least the two that we have discussed, is that we're either trying to make more money out of one of our customers, or we're trying to understand the behavior so we can optimize our internal processes. Does anyone disagree with that? Okay, so and as you can see, right, if we went from the digital payment banking to those two things, this will drive our KPIs, right? How much data we're collecting, what are we doing, what are our guardrails, what are we trying to do, what are our KPIs, right? If our increased revenue per customer, what are the outcomes, right? And that's very, very important to actually start and think about, okay, what is that we're trying to achieve? And collecting the data or increasing the revenue is quite a different goal. And they can be mingled together, but then the KPI and the measurement might be different. Yes, come on. Kamal, you wanted to add something?
No, thank you very much. I just entered.
Okay, sounds good. So yeah, so effectively, like, those are those North Star, two different approaches. And as we think about this, as we keep down to why are we trying to do for our organization, that's going to be different approaches and different KPIs. And that's why it's important to get down, okay, customer satisfaction, shorter payment time. Yes, it's a customer problem, it's a design thinking, but how does it change your organization? How does it make your organization better? And that's very, very important point, is that are we trying to increase the revenue per customer, or we're trying to save money by understanding the behaviors better and do additional analysis so we can address the needs of our organization most important. And that's very, very, very important. How are we changing our organization and what for? And that's kind of I'm going to share that presentation with you so you can go and do it with your team and enter, and kind of that would be the process that I just described, right? So you need to remember why we're trying to do this. We're trying to either, generate more money per customer, right? More money per customer, or we're trying to get the data to optimize our processes, right? That would be two reasons. And again, maybe you get in the data to understand your customer better and make more money on your customer as well. That might be that as well, right? But you need to really get down to that final why and communicate it. This is why we're trying to do something. This is what our goal is, to increase our revenue per customer, right? And then as we go through this, and there's going to be a lot of variations, you can actually say, okay, are we actually increasing our revenue per customer? Is this design, is this approach, is this idea will let us better kind of squeeze our customer, right? Will it allow us to get us to the goal of that revenue per customer? And that's a very, very important point, that you need to get to the final one. Do you have any questions here? Any questions? Maybe someone want to challenge me? Ingi,
Yes.
please.
The ownership of innovation itself. Now, I might be an innovative person, but then I need to be existing in a culture. Now, that's the important thing. How then to promote that part?
Yep.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to pinpoint more or less the same question that came from Hannah. We are always speaking about the innovation culture inside the organization. So innovation on its own, that's my opinion. It is not something that is materialistic or it's tangible that I have to put in the goal. Yeah, the goal is the overall objective of the organization, which is clearly stated mostly in a strategy or an organizational strategy that is cascaded among the different functions. What we really need to do here, I believe, is that we should take these goals or objectives in each function inside the organization. There has to be innovation inside each function, so that eventually all the teams are aligned on one goal, which is what the organization should reach at the end. The question here is, how can we make people align together on this one main purpose or one organizational objective, which is cascaded agree upon the different functions in the organization? That's a real challenge, I would believe so.
Exactly, and that's kind of what I output here on that message, right? Is that the culture starts with a message. It's really hard to say, you know what, we all going. Let's say we all decided to go to the park, right? Let's say that's our idea. We want to go to the park, and then without actually telling what park that is, and that's impossible to go, right? And that's why, all those organizational strategies are really good, really well defined on the department level, but those are usually complicated. Those are usually done for the executives who really understand the strategy, who know the language, who work with that, who have that knowledge. And you cannot build the culture based on the executives. If executives have the knowledge, if they have understanding of the strategy, you'll not be able to build the culture. So the first step of building this culture is exactly doing what we just did, is that why are we doing this? And then if you say that we are doing this to increase our revenue per customer, great. That's a first step. Or we're trying to collect the data, right? And then we can say we're trying to collect more data about our customer behavior because we can use them later to analyze, to improve our processes, right? And then again, that could go further. What we're trying to improve with the process. And then if this is our goal, so Inji, to your point, if this is our goal to understand our customer better, to optimize our processes, okay, what does it mean for my department? What is the pain point that I have in my department that I'm trying to solve with that data? And then if you trying to say, well, I'm trying to speed up, let's say, customer onboarding, and I'm trying to understand what are the steps that they're taking to become my customer, then I can actually build that around that. Inji, yes, please go ahead.
So it could be basically answering a question of what's in it for me to adopt digital transformation inside my function.
Exactly.
And as you were saying, the digital strategy or the transformation objectives across on the executive level, we all have no doubt that it is supported and it is understood and so on and so forth. But this has to be cascaded top bottom. And we are really concerned with the middle management and the frontliners and the middle management across the different functions, because these are the teams that are going to help us really implement what we're speaking about.
Exactly.
So the answer here, or what you're saying, is that we have to find a way to answer the question of what's in it for me, and this has to be tailored across each and every function, so that we get their buy-in. Simply.
Yep. And you know, I'm gonna simplify it even a little bit further, right? So I believe, and that has worked with a lot of our customers, and I believe that it's applicable to any commercial organization, that any commercial organization does things for the 3 reasons only, right? So Hannah, as you said, here are our statement, right? Here are our statement. And then at the end of our 5 whys, right? At the end of our 5 whys, we will end up with 3 of those things. We can either earn the revenue, right? We can save expenses, right? So we can spend less, or we can satisfy a regulator. This is the only 3 reasons why everything is being done within the organization. Does anyone want to challenge me on that? So
agree in the concept that this is exactly what's required, and usually all the processes will go around all I mean the industries would go around these main pillars. But I would like to just highlight something. The innovation, as we're discussing right now, it seems more into brainstorming and pinpointing, or mind map for analyzing and for looking for solutions. While the way that it's perceived, it's mainly that it's kind of a digital computer-related sciences. That's why the people are reluctant to have an input on that part. And from there, they think that I could hardly manage an Excel sheet. How am I going to innovate? And from there, we get the confusion at the part of our practice. I mean, I will just reflect to my organization.
Yep.
Flas, here Dagobert. I guess what you are saying, but for me, it's quite an economical thinking. So it's kind of logical that you have cost savings or earning revenues and so on. So, but this only is the economic side, yeah. So I think if you want to have an motivational organizational message, yeah, you must have a bigger message. This could be, we are the number one, we get, we are the fastest one, we are the first in the market, and so on. So this is only the reason why, yeah, because you are doing that, but you need a different message, which is quite more emotional, and I guess there could be a lot more of key messages in.
Yep. And I'm going to address it. Mustafa, you were going to say
yes,
something.
I would just want to say that I think we are missing the people, the employees. We are just
Okay.
talking about the business and the growth of the business. Yes, that's very important, but some people believe that this digital transformation is going to replace them, like the frontliners and everything. So they are just going to lose their jobs. So some people are they are not convinced, and they are against all this digital transformation because they are just trying to protect their job and trying to protect their earnings. So I believe that we are missing in here how this can be motivating for the people in order to make sure that this transformation is not going to be to have a lot of people who are just trying to make it fail just to protect their jobs and earnings.
Yeah. Inge, you want to add something?
Yes, I agree big time with Mustafa on this part of that people are sometimes resistant, especially in areas where it is related to operations or something that has been done for ages in a way, and you're trying to change it. I think this would go back again to the concept of what's in it for me. When maybe when they understand that it's something that would add to them, it's beneficial, it's not gonna remove their presence from the organization, maybe they will do something else, maybe they will do their job but in a more efficient way. So accordingly they're not going to be resistant or trying to put obstacles as we go we're implementing some things. So yes, I agree big time with Mustafa on that as well.
Yeah. Hannah.
I think based on the discussion right here, I could say yes. Beside the point mentioned about the people, there is the ethical part. As much as we are working here, there is a kind of a main factor that would hold even the people in place, which is the ethical part. It's the good cause, it's the benefit, it's the mutual benefit. Developing the work and developing myself with the work, merging or being part of the success of the organization, and the ethics, how we do that with sincerely and honestly, again, would keep everybody satisfied because we are keeping up the synergy with our values and means. And so the ethical part is so essential at this point.
So why? And you know, I'm just gonna play a devil's advocate, right? For those of you who are not familiar with that term, right? I'll just try to challenge what you just said. Why would organization want to be ethical? Why?
You're asking me.
Yeah. Why?
Because sometimes when you are driven by the revenue or you want to save the expenses, you will be cutting off the people or cutting off some of the elements, human factor affecting it, and that would affect the morale.
Okay, and so what?
Once you affect the morale, there is a hidden culture that will be dropping all the people productivity, and you will have, even from business concept, a high turnover, and you will be losing people, losing faith, and nobody will be having any passion to come to work.
Can I just edit? Maybe the word ethical is a little bit a misunderstanding, but what people like to have is a purpose.
Purpose. Yeah.
Companies need to have a purpose, and this is, I guess, what you are meaning. So a reason why you are working there. This is the most motivational.
Exactly. Message. That's that. So what I was going, and I think you, Dagobert, you said that, and Hannah, you said that, right? Is that at the end of the day, and again, I know that this is a little bit of the cynical approach, right? But at the end of the day, we want to have a purpose within our organization, because people who are driven, people who are motivated will earn us more money. They will be better with their customers. They will try to screw them over. And then with the long term, they will earn the revenue. The same goes to the save expenses. If people are motivated, if people feel good about what they do, the turnover is going to be smaller, and therefore we're going to lower our expenses, right? And that's a very, very important point, that at the end of the day, it all goes down to the business, and it doesn't need to be communicated to like only we're just doing this, right? But at the end of the day, that's why it's important, is that because, you know, when we talk about ethical and responsible and impact, all of this is great, but there is something beneath it, right? There's something that we want to do this way because it resonates with our people. Because if we do it this way, people will be more driven besides money. So we need to effectively maybe even pay them a little bit less, right? That's why all those nonprofits exist. Sometimes you pay them a little bit less, but they actually work on that purpose. And that's always, you need to drill down to those things. And then what I want to address is that sort of, the safety of things. If I say that the goal of our organization is to do the AI onboarding, that could actually be a very menacing message, right? Because artificial intelligence, oh my God, I'm intelligent and they're gonna replace me. What is going on? How can I do it, right? But then if you say, okay, we're onboarding AI experience, not because we're trying to replace you, right? Or replace you as a person, but we are trying to speed up the processes so we can save the expenses on working with the customers, and you can work on something else, on something more important. And that obviously, that's when it comes down to this. If we're trying to save expenses by slimming down our call center, how can you make sure that the people who are currently in the call center, they see this objective, but nevertheless, you're not maybe trying to fire them, or maybe you are not trying to fire the person who's managing those people, right? So how do you actually align that message? And there's definitely a little bit of the art, but the more simple you make it, the easier it will be for people to understand what you're trying to do, and the easier it will be for them to kind of come to the reality. And then you can think, okay, if I know that manager will be against this, what can I put into my message that yes, we're trying to save the expenses, but we are trying like to repurpose your call center, or because we're gonna be able to work and weed out some of those problems that you currently have. You're only gonna talk to people who really have issues, and the wait time is gonna be shorter. So everyone will be more satisfied, right? So really need to bring it down and then trying to align. But once you're trying to go from AI onboarding to saving expenses on your call center, that's completely different discussion. And that's, I think, what's important.
Yeah, but it depends very much on what kind of innovation you have. If you just want to improve the call center, or just have another incremental innovation like a better like button or something like that, then you need on a first level this kind of rational arguments. But if you are going for moonshots, if you're going to have a real big innovation, then you need much more emotional messages for the people.
Well, I would still challenge you that, like, at the end of the day, that yes, the challenge can be, we're going for this new technology. Someone gets excited about technology. Someone gets excited about that one. That's fine. That's absolutely fine. But the first step to the building that culture is actually try to understand why we're doing it. Usually, again, those moonshots will be something that, okay, you're creating something that hasn't been done before, that will allow us to get our new customers so we can make more revenue. So we need to start really like on those three things, and then we can build everything on top of that. But the first thing is that ask those 5 whys and get down to those 3 reasons. And then once you get to those 5 whys and got to those 3 reasons, make money, save money, or satisfy the regulator, then you can build everything around it. But as long as one of those or all those 3 things are defined, then you can actually start building, because now you have a clear goal and now you have a transparency. Everyone can remember those 3 things. AI, moonshots, all of that language confuses people. But if you start with those 3 simple things, everyone understands making money, saving money, or doing the regulator, then the culture could be built. So, I mean, obviously, innovation changes. We need to rank them on the impact, alternatives, and time to market. I don't want to talk about that one too much. It's just there for your reference. And then the personal, right? When we talk about that personal part, is that it's very important to understand, right? Is that how do we actually deliver something? And that deliver something is very, very interesting. And I really like this analogy of getting from point A to point B, right? And it seems to be very simple, but nevertheless, there's a lot of things that kind of built into this. So the first one is that, okay, resource ownership and availability. So for example, if I own the car, my road from point A to point B will be on those roads, right? If I own the car. But if I own the car, but currently my wife is using my car, well, I don't have a car. The same goes in the in when we're trying to deliver things, right? Is that, okay, do I have, for example, software developers? Okay, do I have them? Okay, if I do, that's great. But are they available? Well, that's completely other question, right? And then if you go into someone saying, okay, can you do this? Do they have those resources, and are those resources available? Then the other one is implementation speed, right? Is that if it takes me an hour to get from here to here just to realize that I did it wrong, that's a very risky thing. But if it takes me 2 minutes to get from point A to point B and realize that I'm wrong there, well, so what? You know, I will drive around and I will go from point A to point B. I'll try to find it, right? And that's very important here, is that the shorter you can test something, and you probably heard it a million times, but the shorter you can test it, the more likely that something is going to be delivered. That's why it's very important to shorten down the implementation speed. It might not be perfect. You might have a focus group. You might look into something, but the shorter the implementation speed, the more confident you can be that you can get to this point A to point B. Then the other one is the knowledge of space, right? Is that did I actually drive on those roads before? Have I actually done that, right? And that is actually a very interesting, those point 3 and 4, right? Is that, and that's kind of the innovator dilemma that I like to define it. The more innovative you're trying to do something, the less experience anyone will have in it, right? If somebody is trying to build a mobile app, right? Back in the day, it was very innovative. Nobody knew what are the best practices, how to do it, what to do it. It becomes a very, very complicated thing in the very beginning because no one knew how to do it. Right now, there's thousands of people who are doing those applications, right? And the more innovative you do something, the more innovation you're trying to bring, the less applicability of the existing solutions you're going to have. So effectively, the more you're trying to innovate, the fewer people you're going to find who will tell you this is how you do it, because no one have taken that road. No one have taken the road. Google hasn't surveyed it. They didn't put their maps on it. The road is just literal. You building the road as you go, right? Nobody will tell you where to turn if you are building the road right now. And that becomes very, very important when you're trying to think about this. All right, can we hire someone? Well, who done that? If we can, then the timelines and delivery goes down. If we can't, well, there's much more of the uncertainty there. Can we do it faster? Can we do it slower? So we really need to think about those things, and they become a part of our culture. Is that we need to say, you know what, guys, we're doing something really new, something that hasn't done before. Dagobert, to your point, to the innovation, we're trying to do this moonshot. This is what we're going to do. There's going to be a very new, very great idea, right, out there. But you need to say, well, you know what? We don't know. We are the ones doing it. So therefore, there's going to be back and forth. And that's why we need to focus on that. And it becomes very important to actually sit down and understand and communicate that message. This is what we have. This is how long it's going to take. And this is going to lead us. Or maybe we're just wandering in the dark trying to get to it. And that's another portion here. Then the other one that I think is that kind of goes into this is that uncertainty of the innovation, right? Is that the first one is that it's very hard to plan. It's very hard to plan against like a first, maybe second step of what we're trying to do. And again, be open about it. You know what? And that's what the agile is effectively built on, right? Is that you do those small iterations. And it's not always, and what agility means? Agility really means flexibility, right? Flexibility means that you try to get from as much plan as possible, right? Where you feel comfortable, go to this point and check, was your assumption at point 0, was it actually right? Was it actually okay? Or we need to revisit some things. And that's why it's very important, again, to the speed implementation, to this flexible approach, understand and say, everyone, you know what? I don't know. I don't know yet until I try it. And I know I've been working with my clients and they're saying, well, do you think this will work or do you think that will work? And I usually tell them, I'll say, well, you know what? With clients that we work something similar, that worked. But you, completely different organization. Nobody knows your organization better than you. So the only way you can know that something works if you actually started working on if we work on it, if we try certain things, the more we try, the more information, the more analysis we're going to have. Can we apply some of that knowledge that I have working with my other clients to your situation? Of course I will, but I will not be able to tell you. Sometimes I can say that, yes, you know what, this works. I always seen it working. It will work for your organization. But the majority of the times I say, you know what, most likely this will work. But until we try it, it will be very hard for us to do, for me to say whether it will work or not. So that's why I'm saying there's going to be a limited planning horizon. We're going to plan maybe 4 months ahead, see and try and see what is going on. And then we're going to regroup and plan again. I'm not saying that we're not going to plan at all. I'm just saying that let's do something, see the response, see how the team reacts, see how fast we can deliver, and then we can go back to that planning. And the same goes kind of, and everything else kind of follows, right? Lack of objective data. Well, if I go and I talk to my customers, what is your problem, right? They'll say, well, the payment processing time is slow. I'm like, okay, that's fine, right? I'm gonna go and I'm gonna speed up my payments, let's say from, I don't know, from 2 hours to 1 minute. Like instead of going to the bank, you can do it from your phone. And then I put it in front of my customer saying, well, you know what? It actually wasn't that. It wasn't something else. You know, it wasn't that, no, something else, right? So this lack of objective data is very important as well. And there are those unknown interactions that I guarantee you, and you probably all see that, is that as soon as you start doing something new, you will find things that you haven't even thought about. There's like, oh my God, I forgot about that this team should need to be involved. Or we haven't thought about the regulation, or we didn't think about something else. And that's something that we need to get comfortable in the beginning of the conversation when we build the culture, right? And that's again, everyone is really good at pumping their chest saying, we're gonna do it, we're gonna do it, we're gonna do it, which is fine. Can-do attitude is great. But at the end of the day, you need to be open and say, you know what? We can plan for this. You know, we will revisit this. Let's drive to this goal. Let's see how it's happening. And then we can rethink about it, right? We will be the leadership. We will do the thinking in the background, but we need all of you to actually understand that there might be things that are completely, we didn't think about. We did our best to think from point 0 to point 1, but if we need to end up on the point 60, there is really no way for us to actually know what's going to be between 0 and 60, right? So that's why when we're thinking about the culture, that's when we need to say there's going to be uncertainty. And again, the more innovative you are, the more uncertainty you're going to have. Dagobert, yes, please.
Yeah, but this is very much a Western approach, yeah, where you try to get all the data and information. So as you know, I was working for years in China and Asia. So there's at the beginning the very big picture thinking, and they don't care at the beginning of all the small details. So they just put it away, the Asian people, and just try to start working. And this is a completely different mindset than I experienced, at least here in Europe, where you have a lot of thinking very much at the beginning why something could not work and so on. And in Asia, they really planned it out. Yeah, they just started. And and when it's not working, then they are flexible and it changes the way.
Yeah, and you know, and that's actually, you know, that's you gave me a very good point to my next one, right? Is that when you come to this and you say, you know what, let's go and try work on it. We don't know, right? We don't know. And again, that don't know depends on your culture, right? Again, I cannot tell you what your message should be for your organization, because again, neither me nor anyone else know your organization better than you. I can suggest you, and the more analysis I do, the better I will be, right? But no one will tell you the exact message. But the point being is that everyone needs to get comfortable. If they want to work on the innovation, if this is really what drives them, they need to get comfortable with certain uncertainty, right? Is that you need to, the only thing that they could be certain of is that there's going to be changes. There's going to be uncertainty. And you know, some people will be resisting this innovation because of that, right? They will be saying, oh, it will not work. It will have all of those issues. And that's something that I learned from the Nobel Prize winner, Daniel Kahneman. He's an author of the best-selling book, Thinking Fast and Slow. If you wanted to read a very interesting ways of how our brain tricks us, I suggest you reading this book. Absolutely fantastic. Has been translated to the majority of the languages. But he is he's actually a psychologist who got a Nobel Prize in economics. Why? For the decision making. And one of the things that he taught us at Goldman Sachs, we had like a very big conference with him, is that something that's called the failure report, or listen to the pessimist. So what do you do is that in the beginning of the project, imagine that your time frame has passed and project failed. At least 3 reasons why it failed, right? So Dagobert, to your point, let's say you have a cranky Russian, I'm Russian, so I can say, you can have a cranky Russian in your company who will say, oh, it will not work. And instead of saying, well, you know what, Vlas, you're always cranky, you're just Russian, just forget about it, we're going to do it. You actually say, okay, why do you think it's going to fail? And then they say, okay, I think it's going to fail because A, B, C, and D. And you say, okay, what can we do for this A, B, C, and D things so it doesn't fail? What would you do to make sure that we control that risk, right? How do you actually make sure that, let's say, oh, we don't know our customer? Well, Vlas, how can we, if we don't know our customer, what can we do to understand our customer better, right? And that's approach. It's really useful within your organization to have that one cranky person, or designate one cranky person of saying, you know what, this is actually going to fail, and it's going to fail because of these reasons. And you list those reasons, and then as you list those reasons, you actually saying, what can we do to mitigate that risk, right? So and that's kind of how would I put it here, right? Is that here you put the risk, and then here you will put a solution. How can you mitigate that risk? How can you work a little bit further on that? And that really shifts people mentality from let's try and do it, this is so exciting, this is great, to the risk management mentality, and let them think about the things that they are not thinking yet, what might go wrong. Because as soon as you switch that mentality from yes, let's try and do it, let's try and test it, which is fine, which is great, which is absolutely important, but then at the same time, how can we increase the success of this? Well, we can think about it, why it could fail. And then as we understand why it could fail, and people will give you amazing ideas, I suggest you try it with your team. Just like, why do you think this initiative will fail? Why do you think you don't want to do this? And then as people will start pouring out all those negativity, effectively, you'll be able to say, oh, we didn't think about this, or we didn't think about that. It's completely different mentality from versus like, what can we do to make it succeed? It's more of like, what can we do to not make it fail? And that's very, very important technique. I personally use it many times, and I would suggest you doing this. Again, just saying, a year has passed, why it failed? Any questions here?
So my question to you is that as you are bringing out all that negativity, how you would balance up the atmosphere and not letting the people being kind of frustrated or giving up on the project, and balancing that and encouraging them, and yet getting them to look for solution instead of everybody will be falling into the negativity and how unsuccessful.
Yeah, and look, and again, the whole purpose of this exercise, right, is not to list just the reasons and the risks why it would fail, right? It's again, okay, let's list all the reasons why it would fail. Everyone gets a little bit down, right? And then again, I'm saying like, okay, maybe let's say Dagobert comes in and says, you know what, Vlas, this initiative is going to fail because, as I said, we don't know our customer, right? We don't know if our customer wants that. We think they want it, but how can we test it? And we don't know our customer. And then we say, okay, Dagobert, how would you learn your customer more? What can we do right now to learn more about our customer? What can we do in the project? Maybe a first step in my analysis will be, okay, we go and we talk to our customers. Maybe we give them some kind of the extra service, right? Maybe you're trying to automate some service. Maybe you're trying to say, okay, let us get a 20 people or like 10 people, a 5 people team who will go and perform the service manually, not automatically, but just manually, and see how our customer react. Select 25, 50 customers, try that idea on them, and just do it manually. But that, Hannah, to your point, that gets from this negativity to, okay, we have those risks. Those risks are real, but how can we solve them? And that's when you try to you list all those risks, and then you switch to, okay, let's solve those risks. Let's eliminate those risks so our project actually succeeds. Does this make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, awesome. All right. So again, that's kind of like two ways. Probably the only thing that I want to say is that communication should be two-way. And that's probably one of the things that I personally learned a lot, like personally, is that as you can see, I'm very like type A, I'm very energetic. I come in, I'm like coming in, I'm telling my idea, and any questions? And there's silence, right? Because everyone just scared of me. If I know it's kind of hard to say on the phone, but I'm 2 meters and 110 kilos, right? So I'm a big guy. And everyone is just scared of me pretty much. And I would rush away and be like, oh yeah, everyone agreed. But in reality, it's not necessarily true, right? It's not necessarily that they actually agreed with me. So I always kind of made a assumption. If I bring people to the meeting, if I bring people to the room, when I'm trying to build that culture, I started with my own idea, right? And then I go around the room, and I'll say, what do you think? And I want to hear their opinion. I want to pull that communication out of them. I want them to speak. I don't want them to say, yes, Vlas, we love your idea. No, I want everyone in the room to speak. And then when you force people to speak, the amount of feedback and the ideas and the buy-in and the culture building just increases exponentially. When everyone is heard, right? And everyone says, oh, everyone is heard in our organization. Well, you need to account for the people who are afraid to talk, who don't want to talk. And you cannot hear people if they don't speak. So you need to make them speak. And that's one of the ways that is really, really important, is that if you invite people to the meeting, if you invite people into the discussion, you invited them for a reason. And then if you invite them for the reason, you want to hear what they think, what they have to say. So make sure that they say it. And that's a really important piece of building the consensus. Then again, in terms of the mutually beneficial, you can send, okay, this is my benefit, this is your benefit, and that's why we're trying to align this, and this is what we're trying to do, right? That's one of the exercises that you can do. And just try to say, okay, if my department is doing something, then your department will be doing this. What is it for your department? Or if I'm a manager and you my subordinate, what is that in you, right? Then again, in terms of the implementation, proof of concept, minimal viable product, you probably heard about that, is that try to solve that problem really quick. And as I said, for example, if you're trying to automate some process, or you're trying to introduce some new process with AI, technology, and all of this, do you need all of that? Do you need all of the technology? Do you need all of that AI? Actually, no, you don't need that technology. The only thing that you need is that people who work with you, and just, you can take, again, 10, 15, 5, 2 people. You can do something manually with that particular person, with that particular customer base, and see how it works. We have been doing it for some of our customers, is that, they come in and it's like, oh, we want to offer this to our customers, and we need AI, we need data centers, we need all of this. I'm like, have you tested it? Then they come back to me and say, no, we cannot test it because we don't have that technology yet in place. And I say, well, can you do it manually? Can you satisfy the needs of your customers and test those processes with the manual labor? Yes, it's not scalable. Yes, you will not be able to get the money that you're trying to get out of it. But if you have it, if you try it, then it's much better. I know we have our next speaker in, so I'm just going to quickly go to my last step, effectively, is that if you're trying to change something, just focus on those 3 things at the end of the day. Make returns to old ways harder than possible. Like, if you're building a new system, make sure you kill the old one. Not immediately. Obviously, there should be some transition time and but make sure that make return to always harder than possible. You constantly, if you have like innovation office or anything like that, constantly check on the solutions that have been built, just making sure that people are using them. And then the third one is that always integrate into the process chain. Start thinking about your organization as a process chain, is that the next process cannot stop before the previous process ends, right? And make sure that it's as unflexible as possible, because if you want people to follow the process, the only way that you can ensure that people follow that process is that they have no other way of doing that. So that's kind of all what I have. And we have our next speaker in line. So Allison, I want to introduce you, and then I will go from there.